Hey guys, it's Katie. So I decided that I need to make some more red things because it's that time of year. It's mid November here and it's cold and I don't have any red pendants, I realized. So I'm going to make one. Now, I'm going to use this color that I used for my bowls, the bowls we did a while back. So if you want to see see what I used for colors in this, check out that tutorial where I did this bowl. I think it's on video 2 that I actually mixed the clay, the part 2 of it. It definitely looks different raw than baked, but I like this color and I have this left over. So it started off with Cernit and then I added some other clays to get a deeper mica shift in it. But I have this left over, so I'm going to use this. So pretty much all I've done is just kept folding it and rolling it just like you would do when you do a mica shift. So most, I should say, most of the clay particles are laying flat on top of each other, just like a frozen lake. Okay. And then we're going to modify it so that it's like the ocean or the lake in spring when the ice is all jaggedy. And when we do that, that's when it looks like this. Okay? And we're going to do that by rolling it in balls just like we did for the bowl tutorial. We're just going to roll up different size balls, and it doesn't really matter how you do this in my mind because I've done it different ways. I kind of make little piles because I have a hard time rolling different sizes. So I like grab I roll about the same size and put them in different piles. And then I do the same size again, like a different size, but a little smaller, and then put it in that pile. Because I seem like I can do the same size over and over, but I'm not very good at varying my sizes. So I'll do like one larger one and then one smaller one and one even smaller and put it in these little piles, and then eventually I mix it up. But I do like to vary the sizes. Just when I did it with the bowl, I found if I varied the sizes, I got a better look in my mind. But play around with it and see what you like best. Put on a movie, put on a video, watch whatever you want to watch, and chill out and relax. This is a great thing to do if you plan on doing it, but you don't really want to get into a project. Just to roll these balls up without having to focus on anything. You know, when you want to craft, but you don't really want to get anything into anything. It's too late. It's too this, too that. You're too tired, which is what I am right now. I'm exhausted. You could probably hear it in my voice. So, I mean, it is 9:43 on Friday night, so I could go to bed, but I'm like, it's too early to go to bed. So, anyways, my fiance's not home yet, and I'm kind of waiting for him to get home, pretty much. So I'm just going to sit here and roll a bunch of balls until I have enough, and then we'll merge them all together in a cane. And that's what I'm going to use to either make a full pendant or a part of a pendant. I don't know, I haven't decided what this pendant is going to look like. I just knew I wanted to do some more earthy colors. I did a brown recently. And I may do a real red too. This is the Cernit. I don't know if it's the bronze. I can't remember what color this is without pulling out a package. Oh, actually, I have the pack here. Cernit. Copper. That's the copper mixed, and it has other clays mixed in it to get a stronger mica shift. I mixed some other clays in it, so check out part 2 of my bowl tutorial if you want to get similar to this color when it's baked. And see, the different size balls give you the different look in there, depending on if you have smaller ones or bigger ones, depending how we roll it out and if we stretch it out a lot will depend how it looks, whether it's tighter, a tighter pattern or a more stretched out pattern. So this is a little tighter right in here. I didn't stretch it out as much. whereas like this part's stretched out more. So it kind of depends what you want to go for in your look. Okay, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to keep rolling balls, and I'm going to go to bed, and then tomorrow or sometime this weekend, I'll make myself a pretty pendant, I think. God, and this could be the whole pendant. You could just make a pendant in this. This is gorgeous. And Cernet polishes literally like glass. Cernet looks beautiful polished up. I mean, it really, really does. It just, that stuff just shines. So I love Cernet for that reason, or at least their metallics polish up really nice. But they are quite sticky. Even if people will say when I say they're sticky, yes, I have tried leaching these. Even leach for like 2 days on paper, it's still really sticky. So, you know, and it probably will depend on the batch you get, just like any clay. I've gotten some, you know, primo clays that were really, really sticky, and I've gotten some that were super dry and crumbly. And I'm sure Cernet's the same exact way. I bet. So just my batches of their metallic clay is super, super sticky in the batches I got, and I've had them for like 8 or 9 months. I mean, this stuff is like it's 61 degrees in my basement here, and it's like sticky. So I'm going to keep doing this. Okay, so I did that whole sheet last night, and what we're going to do now is pretty much just condense it together. And again, I've already showed you this in that tutorial, but I have some soup going upstairs. I just made some more soup. So in between going up and checking on it. Okay, so I'm going to, oh, Jackson, hang on. Okay, let's see if they'll stop barking long enough. Okay, so we're just going to kind of condense it all together, get it in one big mass, and then I found pushing down is better. You can use an acrylic block. Okay, and then flip it over. Sorry. And then, we'll see. There's no one out there. I don't know why they're barking. And then once you get it flat enough to where it's all holding together, start making a square. And this will be what we're going to use. I was thinking I want to do plaid, maybe a black plaid at some point to go with a regular red, maybe red and gold with the, a red pendant with gold leaf is really pretty together. Just need a couple reds to wear. You know, and if you're making a small pendant, you can use this outside one, which gives you a different look. These couple outside slices, because we're looking to get the inside for like the bowl pattern. But if you're making something small, you can use these outside slices. That will work well. So I'm just going to keep condensing until it's fairly smooth. Just kind of getting it all to come together. You know, you can roll it a hair if you want. Like that. I'm going to go up and check on my soup and let this rest, and then I can decide if I want to use this as just a very simple pendant. Just have like the pattern of my bowl, or if I want to add something else to this pendant. I don't know. I don't really know yet. If I want to have a double-sided pendant or a 2-layered pendant, or I don't really know. I don't really have anything in mind. I just kind of liked this color. Just like that. You sharpen up your edges a little bit if we're going to be putting slices together. Perfect. And there is how I'll get this pattern. And like I said, I might just make a pendant just with this, because I think that would be pretty. But we could do something more. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Maybe I'll make two. Maybe I'll make something just with this, a simple pendant. Polish it up really nice and then resin it. Yeah. Okay, so my soup's upstairs bubbling away, so I figure I'll do this. So I'm going to cut this with my regular blade rather than my clay slicer, mainly because I don't want a crazy tight pattern, and if you just slice it the way it is, your pattern will be really tight. Now I want to stretch it a little bit, so I want my slices uneven areas, and it'll turn out like more like this here. Where I stretch them a little bit in my pasta machine. So again, you're just going to have to kind of play with this, cut some slices. If you have a slicer, really, really thin, bake them off. See if you like that design better, or if you like to roll it out through your pasta machine a little bit, see if you like it stretched out, or just roll it by hand. It's really up to you what design and how stretched out you want the pattern to be. So I'm going to cut the end off too, because I'm going to use these, I think, as well in one pendant, because they give you a different look. Overlap them a little bit, because that part there I cut a little thin. I have these ends too that I can use as patchwork to bulk up a little bit where I cut a little thin. Okay. And then these ones with the inside slices. Oh, that was thin. That was too thin for me, for what I'm looking for. And then what I did on my bowl to kind of mimic to kind of hide the seam a little bit was put little dots in here. But again, you can make these match up perfectly. I'm just okay with adding little pieces to kind of hide it here or there. That's what I like about this pattern, is that you can just add little bits here and there and you won't really notice it. And if you do, it's all part of the pattern. I'm just adding some here or there so it doesn't look so like it's in the middle of a line. And these are really thin because I cut that spot really, really thin. So depending how thick or thin you cut this will depend how stretched out it gets if you run it through your pasta machine. So I'm going to run this through. I'm going to start on a 0. I don't know how thin I'm going to go. It just will depend on what I like. And it's crazy when you, from not sanding this to sanding this, how much the pattern changes. So I have a bowl here I haven't quite finished sanding. Okay, so that's baked there, and this is sanded. I mean, it's just amazing how much more how it stands out when it's baked to when it's just baked, no sanding, no buffing, and then sanding and buffing. The pattern really stands out a lot more. So I'm going to roll this out of my pasta machine. I'll start on setting 0. So there's a 0, and I went that way. So then I'll take it on a 1 this way. So I'm just rotating it each time, going horizontally, vertically, horizontally, vertically. So that's now on a setting 3. And I might, oh, I got some blue on it from my pasta machine. I might add a little bit more on that seam there. Run it through one more time just to flatten that back out. And then do I want to go to a setting 4? Yeah, I might go to a setting 4. Like that. So again, I still haven't decided what the heck I'm going to do with this thing. Let me do the same thing with this guy. On this side, let me change, get the seam kind of filled in a little bit. Now because I didn't cut them too evenly, I have this piece that I added on. See how it just looks different? But this part might be fine here. So try to cut them evenly if you can, if you're being smart and paying attention. But this part looks okay. So they totally look different from the inside to the outside slices. But okay, let me figure out what I'm going to do. Hang on one sec. So I'm thinking I might use this cutter, my Metal Clay Studio, one of the Metal Clay Studio designs. And that will fit here. But what if I back it with this one and just have one side be that pattern and one side be this pattern? I think I like this side better. So I'm going to get my baking tile out. Now, I do like to, personally, this is all personal, my personal choices. I do like to bake one side and then add the backing later. So I may just do one side. See, because if you cut this thick enough, this could be the back on that. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll just do this as this layer here, but it's kind of thin. I didn't cut it quite thick enough. Like this is going to be a thin pendant if I just leave it this, because I think it's on a setting 3 or 4. So this is going to be a thin pendant, which I may have to just back it just to make it thicker. So I may make 2 separate ones and then just do this one too. I have more, I can cut more slices. I need a different tile. Trying to lay it on my baking tile nice and flat so there's no air bubbles in it if I can help it. Okay, and then I would bake these probably 40 minutes or so. And then both of them all back with the same thing with this. Okay, so I'm going to get those in the oven. Pretty quick, easy little thing here. And I got to keep my mind rolling to see what more, I think, whether I want to do this with something else on it, like a different one with either a two-sided. I have a couple things in mind, but I wanted a couple plain ones. So this is the outside of that cane, and this is the inside of that cane. So they look differently for sure. So I'm going to get them baked, and when I'm done, I'll be back. Those are baking. I rolled up another little set with the scraps, and I'm wondering if rather than putting it into a big square, if I keep it flat, if that will be enough for the back on the outside cane pendant. So I'm going to keep it kind of flat, and hopefully if I can just roll it in my pasta machine, I'll have enough, hopefully. If not, I can do some more. And I know I have a couple of uneven little holes here, which I'll put a couple of balls in. And that way I don't have to make a full block. So I don't want the inside, I just want the outside. I already have an extra one for the inside designed pendant. So I'm trying to get the top fairly even. And I won't cut into this is my mindset. I won't cut this, I'll just roll it. Roll it out. And hopefully it'll have the pattern I want. It snowed here this week, and once it starts in Vermont, you know, we're about an hour away from Montreal, Canada, Quebec City. I'm like 7 hours from New York City. New York City doesn't get nearly as cold as we get. So it's snowed Friday. We got like 3 inches. It's been under 22 degrees. I have to start the wood stove today, so we stop using our propane heat. We can use the wood stove, which I did a bunch of wood this summer, so it takes time to do wood, but it saves you, because we have an area we can get wood from, the land around us. It saves us a lot of money in propane to just burn wood, but man, it's a pain in the ass to constantly keep enough wood in the house to keep the house warm. And it gets very dry. People don't realize when you're using a wood stove, and I'm not just talking like, oh, let's just have a fire tonight. I'm talking this is how we heat our house for, okay, it's November, December, January, February, March, April, February, or God, March, June. You know, we're probably a good 4 to 5 months of below 30 degrees, you know, until about April. You'll get in the 40s in maybe April. So, I mean, Vermont is a cold state. A cold A state. I can tell you that. Like once the snow starts, it doesn't stop. It's like some people get a little bit of snow. It doesn't stop here. Once it starts, we will have snow until April. Like it will not go away. It will be here. And we don't get snow days. We don't get snow days. If it's over my knees, I might be able to call out of work. If like I'm walking out to my car and I open my car door can't open because there's so much snow, I might be able to call out of work without getting a whole bunch of grief. That's why most of us have studded snow tires. Okay, I'm going to run this through and see. So that was on 0. Now I just did it on 1. I see I have a gap here, so I'm going to put a ball in there right now. And hopefully this way I don't have to roll as many, just to get the outside pattern. I'm hoping this will work without stretching it too much. Oop. I might want to burnish it a little bit though. See if I can get all these little seams gone, because I don't want to roll it out too thin. Actually, that looks even different than the other part did, which is kind of neat. I've even been watching Christmas movies on the Hallmark Channel. Even though a lot of their movies, is it the Hallmark or OWN or one of the state shows like that in the US, they have all those Christmas movies on them, and a lot of them are super corny and not very well made, but they're like love movies and family, and they put you in that kind of mode, and you don't really have to think about them, so because they're not like a series that you gotta pay attention to what's going on. So I've been watching those already. I mean, you gotta think. I mean, we're right now, it's the 9th of November. I mean, we got like 2 weeks to Thanksgiving. It's crazy, but it is coming quick. Yeah, that should work. Okay. And then I have my other piece here for my other backing. When those guys are out of the oven and slightly cooled, I'll use these as my backing parts. And then I have 2 plain pendants. And they'll be ready to go when those come out. I'll show you how I'll put those on, and then these guys will be done. Okay, so my 2 pieces are out of the oven now. And you can see again how much different they look, right? And even this one, making it like this and not cutting it off, it definitely looks different, but I think it has a cool look to it. So, and then these are the back sides. Okay, so all we're going to do, because again, I rolled these out fairly thin, I'm going to add a backing to them. And when your clay is properly baked, it should be flexible. You'd rather have it flexible than bend it like that and have it snap in half. So you don't want it brittle. And I only bake these for about 40 minutes. Conditioning also plays a role, so make sure you condition your clay well. And then bake it. Bake it properly. If you're not positive your oven or little countertop oven is running at the right temperature and you've never checked it, buy a $9 external oven thermometer or internal oven thermometer that you put in. I have one on my Amazon that I bought, the little cheap one. It was round. It was like 10 bucks. Unless I was positive, and in the beginning I wasn't positive that my machine was running at the right temperature at what I was setting it at. I don't keep it in there anymore now, but when I first started, I did. But it always runs at the right temperature, so I'm good. But you definitely want to make sure your ovens are running at the temperature you're setting them at, because they may not be. Someone on my page today made this cute little thing, and it's all shattered on her, and she's like, what's wrong? And she's baking them for 30 minutes, and she's using Primo, and everybody was like, make sure you're baking it longer, and this and that and other things. So anyways, so I just applied a little bit of Bake Bond to the backside. And my tiles are still roasting hot, so I might have to grab some other baking tiles. Now I'm going to use this side because this is the side I burnished. So I was just flipping it over. Let me grab another tile that I'm going to bake it on. So I'm just going to... Now I could, because these are cut out, they're probably not exactly perfect because they might have gotten a little distorted, but I could just pick a part that I really like on this and cut out about the same size. Oop. Here, and then set that on it. Oh, come on, Cernit. Now you could have just laid it on your sheet, but I don't think it'll exactly match up. Probably not. I mean, I can try in a second. Let's see if I distorted it a lot the first time. No, I didn't. Yeah, I did. See, it's definitely distorted. There's a gap there. Down in there, there's a gap. See? So it's usually not exactly the way it was. Just want to make sure it's stuck on there well and it doesn't have any air bubbles between the raw clay and the baked clay. Just going to trim around the edges. Again, doesn't need to be perfect because I'll use my orange and white wheel later to trim it up. Do that a lot because it's easier than fudging with the edges and making sure they're like beautiful. Just going to kind of smooth them together a little bit. With my finger. I'm not going to put a side or a smear or anything on this because it's the same exact color clay. piece of parchment and just kind of get my fingerprints off of it. I may stretch it a little bit, but again, I'm not overly worried. I can always just trim the edges later. Okay, so that one's done. And the raw part I'll leave face up, and then I'll put it in my oven, and then with a non-waxed piece of parchment or paper, I'll just do that. That's it. I just lay it on top of it. So that is going to go in the oven. And then the second one I'm going to do the same exact thing with. Let's see. So side with the liquid clay down. I'm not putting the seam right in the middle. Give it a good smush on there. Oh, I have that crease from the paper right there. I don't want that. Burnish it on nicely. And my pendant. That I can leave it down and cut it like this. I mean, however, let's see if this one got distorted some. Seems like they shrink a little bit because there's definitely some gaps. So usually I find that I can't use the cutter again. And this stuff looks amazing once it's shined up. I mean, it really does. It makes such a huge difference. I mean, you're looking at this, which is the same exact thing as this. Isn't that crazy how much different it looks? It really brings out the pattern and the design once you sand and buff it. And then the resin almost acts like a magnifying glass. You don't need to resin it if you sand and buff it well, but I just like the feel of the resin on my fingers when I'm wearing these at work. I find myself just standing there talking to someone and rubbing it with my fingers. I'm just like rubbing the front of my pendant because I like the way it feels. So I'm just using the baked one already as my guide. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect, because I'm going to take my Dremel to the edges later. But I just don't want to waste any. I don't need to. Again, I'm going to take it and smooth up the sides, make sure it's seamed together well. And it will kind of bevel it a little bit too, which is fine. Just like taking saran wrap and beveling your edge. And so I already baked one side for 40, I think I did 40 minutes. I was upstairs cleaning. So I'll bake this side for at least 40 minutes, if not a full hour, because it's going to be my final bake on my pendants. So I want my pendants nice and hard, and I always do over a half hour. The half hour, it personally is just not enough. I used to do that in the beginning when I first started with polymer clay, because that's what the package said. But after having some break on me and using Sculpey 3 and spending all that time sculpting things, because I was using it for mixed media and then it broke, it's really discouraging. So always bake for at least an hour on your final bake. I mean, some of my projects, if I'm baking multiple times, I mean, some pieces, some parts of it, like the first part I bake, like on my, on this guy, I think the snowman base and the snow were the first parts I baked. Those probably ended up baking like a full 2 hours, you know, they baked for a long time because, or more, because I baked that thing so many times. Okay, so these are going to go back in the oven for at least 40 minutes, if not longer. Sometimes I'll put it in for an hour, and then I'll go up and clean and vacuum and do my stuff. And then, you know, if at least been in 40 minutes, I might take it out. If I'm still doing stuff, it'll stay in a full hour. So, okay, I'm going to get these in the oven, and then I will be back. These are going to be pretty simple, cute little things. And you could take these a million different directions. You could jazz these up so many different ways. But for this one, I'm going to keep it pretty basic. Okay, so they're both out of the oven, and I have wet dry sanded from 400, 600, 800, 1000 to 1500, okay? So this side is sanded here. And I did a little comparison versus just sanding and buffing, okay? You see how much clearer the pattern looks? Again, on this side too. So people ask, why do I sand and buff before I resin? Because won't that look better under the resin? Just sanded and buffed. I mean, if it's clearer without resin, it's going to be clearer with resin. Okay, so this one, I've showed you these before, has my orange and white wheel I used on both of this side, okay, on that half. Same with this side, I used the orange and the white. Now on this piece, what I did, let me just find it. This one, I just used the orange on compared to just sanding. And this one, I just, wait, let me just, hang on, let me look again. Yep, this one has the orange one, the orange wheel that I showed you many times. It's slightly coarser, so it helps remove any sanding marks. So this one just has the orange, and this side just has a white buffing wheel. So a white buffing wheel, okay? So they both work on their own fairly well, but together, you're going to get a higher shine. I mean, they both look shiny, but together, you get more clarity. So I think, well, either way, I got to do the orange. So put my orange wheel on, and I've showed you my Dremel 4000 many times. I usually polish around speed 15. I hold the lock button, tighten it up. I'll do this other half here that's just been sanded. So I go over with my orange wheel. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure. And again, I mean, you'll start to see it'll shine, but not as much without the white wheel. And the white wheel does the same thing. It shines it, but it's not as much shine as when you do both together. I just get a higher shine when I use both of the wheels. Just like sanding up in your grits. The more grits you use, the more shine. Well, why not? Why wouldn't that same premise count when you're using a coarser wheel and then a finer wheel? And you can still see the difference on the sides. So then once I'm done with the orange, I'll go over it with my white one. And you just can't beat that shine you get. You really can't. Let me do one side of the other one. Let me finish off one side of the other design so I can show you the two designs. So depending on what part of the cane you use will depend on what look you get. So these are the two looks we totally have with these two pendants. So definitely depending on what if you're using the inside or the outside will really make a difference on what you're getting for a pattern. Okay, so I'm going to finish sanding and buffing these up. I'll also just drag my wheel around the edge and finish off the edges. I think I've already done it on this one here, just to make them a little smoother. And then I'll UV resin these. I have a different video on how I UV resin and what ones I use, what ones I prefer. And when that's done, I'll show you how we'll put the jump ring on and the bail, but that's just going to be like we do every time. And we'll string them up, and then I'll have two of this kind of burnt orangey red color. It's more orangey. I mean, this kind of is more like burnt, like a cherry. It's like a cherry wood. I haven't resined these other pieces yet, but I've been making a couple other with the rest that I had. So I made this one here, same thing as this guy. I backed it with some black and used a sponge to texture it, which we've done before in other pendant tutorials, and I put in my initials there. Now I have sanded and buffed the front, so I did this in 2 stages, just like we did the other ones. I've sanded and buffed the front, and now I want to try to do something on the top, which I've never done before, but I'm going to attempt it. So I have a piece of black Primo here, rolled out on setting 4, so a fairly thin setting, because I don't want this guy to get crazy thick. And I have a bunch of different cutters up here, the mini cutters. And I'm going to cut circles out of this and then lay it on here. Now, I don't know if it would be easier to lay it on and then cut the circles out, but I'm going to do it this way, okay? So pretty much you'll just be able to see designs through it. Now, the other thing is I need to know where to cut because I don't want any circles going off the edge. So what I might do is just lay this on and then score it so I kind of know where to lay my circles. And you can kind of score it with anything you want, but that way I kind of have an idea of where to lay my circles on here. Let me rub my pendant back off because I got clay on the top of it. It takes away the sheen. Look at that, just where it touched the clay. Okay, so let's cut out some circles. And I'm so bad at being, I'm so bad at not being uniform. Oh, I don't know why my dogs are barking, I'm sorry. I tend to be pretty uniform about things, and I have a really hard time not being uniform. The other thing is we don't want it where we're going to drill our hole either. Not that I don't think it would really matter, but say our hole is going to be drilled somewhere there. You could put as little or as many as you want. Oop, just flung that piece. Obviously, the closer you put them together, the more distorted they may get. Which is fine. I'm not overly worried if the circles aren't perfectly circle. I'm really not. If you are, then make sure you don't put them crazy close together, because it may make them a little wonky. Don't you come down here and bark. Oh, you weren't the one barking, were you, Diesel? You weren't the one barking, were you? It was your brother. I thought I had one size in between this and that. Guess not. Something skinnier to go down in there. Push that out. Oops, sorry about the camera. I didn't mean to. But I want quite a few so I can see my background. Oh, see, I made a straight line there. I'm so left brain. I'm so analytical. And try not to put them either too close to the edge as well. Oops. Probably enough right there. Get those out of the way so they stop rolling all over the place. Some of that black out of the way. One of these got a little wonky, so I'm going to try to straighten them out, but I can deal with that later once I get it on the pendant. And then I'm going to lay this on because I think it'll be easier to lay it on now and take a peek at where I'm laying it. See, did I go too wide? goal was to kind of roll it over the side. But again, it's going to kind of stretch my circles, but I'm not overly worried about that and my circles being perfect. That's not my whole premise behind the circle thing. But if you want them perfect, it might be easier to cut it on them. I don't really know. I have not done this one yet. Just going to cut some of this off. It's just easier to pick up when it's on parchment, which is why I'm working on a piece of parchment. You can just peel it off and it doesn't really stick down. Kind of trying to seam the two parts together here. And I could go through and smear the edge after, if I don't want that little bit of red showing through. Now at this point, I can fix up these circles if I want to. By just putting the cutter on it, I'm assuming I could just like fix up the circles. Yeah, but I mean, I totally can. This is a bigger one, isn't it? I think this is the medium one. I think that was a bigger one too. It's going to be now. So it might have been easier laying it on and then doing it. My thing is I don't want to really scuff up my polish underneath, so I'm kind of trying to be careful of this because I still want my background kind of shiny. Jackson. Sorry guys. He's had a day like this today where he's just been barking all day. And what I'll do is I'll peel these little pieces out. So yeah, you might want to just cut it on here. Might be a little easier. That one's not very distorted. Oh, that one I didn't get. This one. And I didn't get this one. Oops. Okay. So then just with my, well, really anything, craft knife, anything, you could really just pull these little pieces out here. I'll probably take a ball tool or a silicone tool and just smooth around the edge a little bit until it's where I'm happy with it. Now my plan was to texture this with a sponge as well. So let me get these little pieces all out of here until they kind of look like that. And then I was going to texture this with a sponge, just like the back, like a light sponge texture. So let me do that. Okay, so I got them relatively cleaned up. And I think I'm going to texture it with a sponge, but any kind of texture would work. But I'm only going to push lightly because I don't want to distort things too much. I might just try to resin the circles. Now, I don't know how that will work because that, you remember that pendant I made? That was that round circle and it had the, we cut slits out of it. I did try to resin just those slits once and that didn't work. So I may try it and see how bad it comes out or good. It would be kind of a cool contrast between the textured front and the shiny color, you know what I mean? If I can get the resin perfectly in those areas though, that's going to be my problem, especially the smaller holes. And again, I didn't put one where we're going to drill our hole. So I'm okay if they're slightly distorted. Totally fine with that. I'm not about perfection when it comes to clay. I am in a lot of other things in my life, but when it comes to clay, I'm not all about the perfection of it. Cool. So I'm going to bake that one. And because this is going to be my final bake, I don't think I'm going to do the sides. Once I trim them up, I think the sides will be fine, even though you'll see a little red slit. I'll trim the shape up when it's out of the oven and baked with my Dremel and my buffing wheel. But if you want to do the sides after, go ahead. I've showed you how to do the sides a couple different times. Oh, I just got something on it. Other than that, come on, get off. There we go. I'm going to bake it for a full hour because it's going to be the final bake. So I'll bake that for an hour. I'll show you my other ones when I come back, and I will also get these all resined up and we'll drill some holes. So before I resin all of these, I just wanted to show you guys what I came up with. We have the first two, obviously we did, with the inside and the outside of the canes. Okay. With the same inside, I did this one that I showed you. Okay. And I may just try to resin the holes. If it doesn't come out good, first I'll do the holes. If it doesn't come out good, then I'll put a whole layer on top of it, like if I can't just keep it in the holes. I did this one with the outside of the cane and then a little black strip that I textured and just put some dots in. On the back side of these ones, I just took different texture sheets and did a mica shift. I showed you this one in the last video with the snowflake one. I showed you my texture sheets in part 1. There's one texture sheet. So Totally reversible if you want it to be. Here's the second one. So again, these front sides are the same because you have half of one and half of the other, so you can make two. So with this one, I have that side, and then I just took my leftover red and used a different texture sheet. Again, I think I showed this one. I showed you all my texture sheets in the snowflake pendant part 1. So there's that texture mica shift there. And none of these are resin. So the ones with both sides, I'll probably resin both sides and the actual sides, which again I've showed in one of the alcohol ink ones that I did. Again, the front side, and then this side I used another texture sheet with a mix of the red and the gold, the copper and the gold micas. It's cool because can you see that texture? The Cernit polish is different than the Primo. I don't know, they just polish up different, and you can see the texture in there from the two clays. Kind of reminds me of like one of those topographical charts you used to see as kids. So with these, you can wear them that way, or you could totally wear them that way. Same thing with these guys. I'm just going to pick the side I like the most and resin one side of these. But pretty much from the same veneer, or in the same two colors, we have a big match. Mishmash, and I'll show you them when they're done and resined up. I just wanted to show you before I actually resin them what they looked like. Okay, so the ones I'm going to wear soon are this one and this one. I have the other ones here that I can resin and drill holes in anytime. But I'm going to wear this one. So I resin this one. I did the front, the sides, which I've showed you in other videos, and the back, because I can wear it either way. You know, if you want something more simple, I could totally wear that or that. I put a gold jump ring and bail on it. Now, for this pendant, because I decided to hang it square like this instead of on the point. I don't know, I could have done it either way. But for this one, it's hard to find the center, so I just kind of looked and I dotted with a permanent marker kind of where the center was, and then you can always wipe the permanent marker off and redot if you don't think it's center. But that way you can kind of like move it around and look at your dot and be like, okay, is that in the center? Does that look pretty good? You know, you could, I took my thing and kind of held it up next to it to see if it kind of looked like it was in the center. And I think I did a pretty good job of centering it, but you know, it's hard, especially on this not perfectly square. It's like a pillow shape, so from corner to corner, you know, it's narrower than from the middle, directly in the middle. You know, from here to here is narrower than, or wider than here to here. So I don't know, it's harder to use a ruler. So this one's now done. So with this one, I did try to just resin the holes. And it is quite, the bigger ones were easier to get the resin down into without getting on the sides, but the little holes were really hard to get it down into. So I don't know. On camera it looks kind of funny, but in real life it doesn't look too bad. So I think I'm going to leave it like that and wear it and see if I like it. I can always come back and resin the whole top if I want to. I did use on this one the RJ Crafts Easy Dome because it's a 30-minute curing resin, so there's really no distortion because I didn't want anything pulling in these areas. Whereas this one I used my Decor ROM one that I've showed you in my resining video. So all we have to do for this one is just drill a hole. I don't know, I think it's different. I think I'm going to leave it like that. The two different, you got the shiny and the dull. See, this one's spilled over. You can see a little bit. But I don't think it's too bad. Okay, so this is my hand drill, my pin drill. I've used it many times. I've showed you many times. This is just cheap one off of Amazon. It has a spinny base, which is handy because then you can just put it in your palm and twist it. You don't have to twist your wrist. This one and again, it's on my Amazon if you want it. It comes with different bits, but they're really, really easy to change. You don't have to like separate this whole thing and put some of them have like a plastic part in it, and you have to like take the sheath off, put it in, put the sheath back on. This one, you just open and close the chuck right here to the size you need. So I usually start with the smallest bit possible. That way I get less risk of cracking. That's just anything I do is just my personal preference of what I do. Usually I leave it down, but it's harder for you to see. So first let me try to get my center here. And sometimes when you have designs on the front, it's even harder to find your center because it throws your eye off. Maybe somewhere, I don't like it too far from the edge, but you see my pendant's also sloped down, so it needs to be a little further away so I can get through all the layers, which means I'll have to have a bigger jump ring. So usually I'll put it where I want it, and then I'll score it and kind of push in, and it leaves a little tick mark in the clay or in the resin. And then, again, usually I would be doing this flat on my table, but I'm going to do it up in the air. And I'm not pushing hard. It drills through really easily. I'm not pushing very hard. Just letting the bit do its thing. And then I'll go through from the other direction. Okay, and then I just unscrew, put my next one in, tighten it up. Oh, sorry. The plow trucks, we got like 8 inches of snow last night. The plow trucks have been going by, and the dogs every time go berserk because they think it's like the mailman or something. They're not used to it yet because they hear this big truck going up and down. And then we have like a four-way, not really a four-way stop, but like a V, so they have to kind of go around it. So they're out there and they think they're like here. Sounds like they're here, but they're not. Oh, that one's not tight. It's not spinning. So because I need a bigger jump ring, because this pendant's slightly thicker and I'm further down, I'm going to go to a larger size. Because my jump rings, when they get a little bigger, get a little actually, they get skinnier, and my gauge gets skinnier in the ones I have. So I'm just going up through my sizes very simply. You know, so for making that one, you know, veneer that we made from the bowls, I came out with all these different designs, you know, so I just made one simple thing, and I can really you can get quite creative with one simple thing. You can make tons of different designs without even really having to try. So I started off with a basic, and then I was like, well, let me do this, and let me do this. So that's what I did. I know I didn't show you guys every single thing I did, but I'm sure you can figure out how to roll out a sheet, cut the pendant like we normally cut it, put a sheet of black in there. It's not that, you know, difficult. But if you do want to see something I didn't show you, just write it in the comments, and I'll make a little video on something similar. So now we have a little hole in there. And people ask me where I get all my bales from. I have no clue. I search all over the place. Sometimes it's eBay, sometimes it's Etsy, sometimes it's from years ago when I was jewelry making. Amazon. So these ones I think I got off of Etsy, but just search black bales, gunmetal bales, you know. Unfortunately, I have to go through just as long as you do to search. So I don't save all my search records. I don't, you know, take pictures of every screenshot and post it somewhere. I don't have the time for that. So I would just search yourself. If you're interested in something, just go on those different sites, Amazon, eBay, Etsy, wherever you normally buy stuff, and search. That's all I do, is just search. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to actually fit through. Ooh, it might just make it. Okay, this is a 6mm black jump ring, or gunmetal, or whatever. And then I slid on this bail. And these are my beadle-on pliers, which again, I've talked about before. I love these pliers. They're really small. They fit my hand really well. They don't take a lot of force to open and close. I got these. I bought one at Michael's, and then I liked it so much, I bought another one on Amazon. But I mean, I have pliers, maybe 4 or 5 different brands, but this is my favorite. Mainly because of the size. The grip is smaller around, so it's not so, and some of them are really wide that they're really awkward for me to hold. When you close a jump ring, and this is a 6mm jump ring, so it's very small, so it's hard when you have a pendant to be able to grip it with your fingers. So I do have 2. You want to close from front to back, so you never want to stretch this out. You want to close it from front to back, and I know I've talked about that in different pendant tutorials. So I'm twisting front to back, and not all of them are made perfectly. You see that? But that's lined up. Hang on. Let me see if I can get it to focus. That's lined up. But, you see? They can't mass produce it. So in this case, I will just pinch it a little bit. See if I can get come together. It's springing back a little. I just flung it across the room. No, Jess, get out of my way. And then my dog comes over. What did you drop? What did you drop? Thinking it's food. Okay. Now, that's about as close as I'm going to get it because it keeps springing back, but this won't slide through it. So anyways, sometimes you can spin it so you don't see the seam, but most of the time it's going to spin around, and at some point you'll see where it closes and opens. And this resin does have a greasy, and I've already wiped it with alcohol and it still is a little greasy. And I cured it for probably a good hour. Because I went outside and shoveled and cleaned off my car and brought a whole bunch of wood inside for the wood stove. And I'm just going to grab my little stand here and my broken chain that I just throw it on, or a basic. This is how I wear them. I wear them with basic black cords, leather cords. That way every day I can change it. And I do. Every single day I wear a different pendant. So here's this one here. Take some tape to my stand. So there's that one there. Very simple. Kind of got this goldy. And again, if someone wore it the other way, it could be like that. I'm going to wear it, not someone. If I wear it, I could wear it one of both ways. My pendants don't tend to flip around on me. I only do wear them on a 16-inch cord. Maybe if I wore it on a 20-inch, it was longer, it might have a chance of flipping. But mine don't flip around. I've never been walking around the office and noticed my pendant was flipped. Ever. So that's why a lot of times I don't do the back, but in this case I figured might as well, and now I have 2 different pendants there that I can wear. Very simple, you know. And then this one, a little different, has that faux burl wood veneer type with a different color, and then the textured black, and the back's just black. It's got a couple of pieces in there. I stamped my name into it, which I know I've showed you before, with little stamps. So there we go. Maybe this will inspire you guys to do something else with. It might just inspire you. That's my whole goal, is just to inspire. So, you know, that's what that veneer looks like. And again, I can resin these any point in time I want, drill holes, put bails, anytime I want. So I'm going to end it at that. Okay, I'll see you next time.